Welcome to the Magical Medicals podcast. I'm your host, Buddy Abrahams.
And I'm Terry Allen.
A show about the moments that changed people's lives forever. Welcome to the Magical Medicals podcast. I'm your host, Buddy Abrahams.
And I'm Terry Allen. And today we have an old acquaintance, let's say, in a way, Jules Williams. So he's a writer, director, filmmaker. He's originally from the UK, but he's now based in Malibu, Los Angeles, California. And we did, Buddy did speak with Julian and had a session with him in Dubai.
I spoke to Julian probably about 10 years ago, easily, in Dubai. And it was amazing, just for you to know.
You guys are too kind.
So welcome, and so glad that you're with us and you're here with us. And even though we've all been here for quite a while now, this is the first time we've actually seen each other since, so which is ridiculous, really. You're down the road.
Well, the universe is all about timing, right?
Yeah.
That's right. I always believe in the right timing, and
in the right timing.
There was a lot of olds in that intro, so I can put my hand up and own that.
No problem.
Fantastic. Right. Welcome, Julian.
Well, as normal, we never know what our guests are going to share, which is the magic of it all, really. And so thank you again for coming. We're really honoured, and we're going to hand the floor to yourself. It doesn't mean we're going to be quiet throughout, because I'm never quiet throughout. But we're really excited to have your story to unfold. I hope everyone listens and enjoys the journey that we're on. So thank you.
Great. No, it's lovely for inviting me. Thank you, guys. Great to see you. I think, well, just as a departure point to start off from the intro, I know, yes, I can. It's one of those. I'm a big wordsmith. I love words, and I also the energy behind them. And I have worn many hats in my life, and writer, director, filmmaker. I've made told many stories, documentary style, short form documentary style. Extrapolated the marrow of interviews from people and things, but really I would frame myself with friends and peers and clients as an intuitive. That's as you two, you guys yourselves. That's what frames everything of what I've done, and I've deep dove into that as front and center as my career over many years. So even if I'm writing or if I'm making documentaries and doing films, it's all anchored in really with how I would say I just cheat and ask upstairs and latch on to my connection and off I go and stuff. So I can't take any credit for that other than I turn up and I tune in and see where I'm led, really. So, but again, we come back to words. Many years ago when I was on psychic television, I used to say I was a psychic, and words get labels, and labels become judged and watered down and things. So I went through intuitive. Now I'm probably going to search out whatever the next iteration can be, keep it fresh. But I don't know if that makes sense, but that's the anchor of all of what I do, really. It is.
We completely understand. It's the same. I've had many hats like you, and when people ask what I do now, it's like, well, you'd be here all day if I'm running them off. But yeah, it's the intuition that's governed everything, really, at the end of the day.
Talk about intuition, Jules. I mean, have you ever been let down by your intuition? Have you always followed your guidance? Have you always make sure that whatever message you get for yourself, this is the path that you want to take? Have you always trusted it?
Yeah, I think in adult life, for sure. I was very intuitive as a kid, which I think all of us are. I think all of us are all intuitives. It's just I think I chose to work out down the intuitive gym and develop that muscle and spend time shaping my intuition at the gym a lot. And I'm not. I always joke. I'm not like a fifth generation gypsy or have a whole history of anyone. Well, maybe these days I should say I don't identify as a psychic gypsy, but so I didn't have any framework as a kid when I was seeing the truth of the matter or picking up on spirit and seeing spirit. And I was just scaring family around me, really, if I'd come out with things. So I shut that down a lot and sort of immersed myself in sport, probably more so as protection, I think. Physical world, and I kept it physical, kept busy, kept sport. And then, but it was always, I'd always know where something rang true or didn't ring true. So, you know, people, you know, I get execs that say I've got a good BS monitor, and they're just tapping into their intuition. They just don't know necessarily or work it like a muscle. So for me, I did shut it down in terms of, so when I opened it back up, sort of after college, I had the luxury, I traveled for a couple of years. Well, I say luxury, I roughed it for a couple of years in America and Australia, New Zealand and things. So it gave me the time to reconnect with what it's all about, Alfie, so to speak. So that's when I really opened it back up again. But having gone through it as a kid, I did like an intensive 3-year work with the subconscious, understand the subconscious and tuning in and psychically and working on myself to try and be as clear a channel as possible, to help be as clear a channel as possible for everyone else. And I think having gone through the childhood I did, it helped me with upstairs to set clear boundaries, which we can talk about if you want to in a bit. I think when people open up psychically, they're not necessarily boundaried with spirit. There's so many levels of spirit. It's like, I was with upstairs, show me what I need to know, or tell me if I ask. No, you know, tell me anything else. And so that helped me, I think, be more clear if I was reading somebody or going in or find out. So long story short, buddy, yeah, you know, adult life, I have to, I think all of us, if it's a radio station, I trust that channel implicitly, because it leads me everything, you know, in the right stages, what's happened, what I've asked for, what I'm meant to do, amongst the human foibles of what our journeys lie.
Yeah.
I know absolutely I can trust that.
Do you work from a level of feeling or listening, or what works, or seeing? What's worked for you?
Yeah, I see in thought, sort of above clairvoyance, but clair-knowing. So it's interesting. My wife's a huge clairsentient, and I've worked with clients that are clairsentient, but it's interesting seeing how you can feel everybody or pick up on other people's stories and literally physically need to bring that story to someone's attention, or in her own mind say, what's going on here? Why is my heart hurting? Why I've got pain in my shoulder? And
no, I'm like that.
God, thank God I'm a clair-knowing in a way. Whereas I see very clearly in thought. So I can ask upstairs and they show me visually in thought. So I've escaped some of the vagaries of.
Interesting. Terry Friel's most diverse.
I see a lot, and I feel like your wife does as well. And I'm like, you know, we're waking up, heart's really sad and sore. I'm like, what's this now? Who's this? Then I have to ask the angels, show me who this is. And then it might be an hour or so, and that person will text me, or a family member or friend or something. Or I'll be given an unusual song that I know is not my song. And then a friend of mine plays it on one of their Instagrams. So I said, is this your favourite song? This is you need to look at the lyrics, because I've been getting that all week. It doesn't belong to me. So I've had to really, I think Buddy asked about your clear intuition, was because I've slipped up a bit with that at the beginning, thinking it was mine, and it wasn't mine.
Well, I think it's one of the hardest.
All.
When we teach intuition, for clients, I have massive respect for empath, clairsentient intuitive that feels, because and I've seen clients that can go through almost like extreme mental health challenges because they don't understand that what they're doing is picking up on the world of everybody else.
Correct.
True.
Correct.
I was a bit martial arts because I asked upstairs, clairseeing, just show me, in a bit brutal because I've been scared as a kid. So I understood that, but living with my wife, I have massive respect but you also, it's so enriching too, because we are all, our feelings and our emotions are so much a part of the journey of the human soul. When you talk about on your podcast synchronicities and miracles, there's feelings that you're picking up on, and intuitive information that you get clairsentiently that just there you go, that's it. It wasn't mine. I just showed you, and it's a beautiful, aspect to that. But yeah, it's like I said, huge respect. I'm I'm reduced to watching rom-coms with my wife. We don't. If I say I can watch, like, I can go into the worst horror film, action film, whatever, and I go and watch it, and I just delink when I come out. Delink.
Oh, I can't.
They can take all the energy. I'll take all the energy for me. Crack on. Oh my word, my wife's wearing it like a coat and a jacket and shaking it off. So
yeah, I can't watch anything scary or violent. It's like it'll be there going on throughout the night. I'm like, oh no, I can't. I have to remove myself. Yeah, same.
Are you and your wife quite aligned with regards to messages that you get, or sometimes one is off or some or the other, or is there a way perhaps you've missed an opportunity and you thought, if only I listened to my intuition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think we're lucky in that we both do it. We both done a lot of work on ourselves because we do it as a profession. So there is no, so I think the flip side of that is there's no escape. Because my wife's feeling it, she's like, can you move your heart on my heart? And I'm like, can you just, I'll do my work in my own time. Can I just have a fight? But her heart will be hurting, so I'll say, all right, and I'll go and look at my story. So we're lucky, I think, that we're very aligned in terms of one or other of us will have a look at it, and the language might be different, but the message or the story will be the same. I can laugh. Very early on in our journey together, she woke up one night and said, I'm angry at you from a past life. I'm like, not your usual conversation as a newly ensconced couple. And I'm like, I know the one. I've seen it before, I know. And that's one of the stories that's really sort of jigsawed out as we've been together. Right. So yeah, thankfully, I suppose because we work with it, we're a bit more in line of our messages.
Yeah, that helps. Otherwise, I think I'd be divorced. Yeah. Again, no, it's the same. We sort of, yeah. None of us will pick something up first. It depends what it is, which part, and then it'll transmute and chat to the other. And so we pick up on different things. We don't pick up on the same things, which is great.
That's lovely, and I can see that with you guys. It's like it's hard, but it's so much more rewarding in terms of expanding. Correct. What it's all about, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
So in regards to your work, I mean, do you do this as a full-time job now? I mean, how do you balance film directing, writer, able to see clients? How do you balance that lifestyle? I mean, how do you bring across that intuition into your normal day, for instance, being a film director? Do you kind of bring in something with regards to, okay, I've got the message now, this is the right person for the role, or do you feel like, oh, hold on, I need to check my wife first?
That's a great question, from what you're asking. I think I wouldn't recommend my journey to anyone, by the way. I think it was organic, and I just kept turning up. But like I said, I did it when in my young 20s, deep dive into the subconscious, opened up my psychic connection, and really worked psychically on all the levels I could, but used it to help people clear emotional blocks in their subconscious, because I had an understanding with the subconscious. So rather than them say, will I meet Mr. Right? I'd be like, look, you've got a pattern running here from father abandonment at 7. It got triggered at 17 when boyfriend left, went in the army. You've got a male abandonment issue story. Let's go back and clear 7 with dad abandonment. Let's wash that through, and let's retrain your subconscious to not feel vulnerable and fear of abandonment and sabotage relationships. To me, that's far more fulfilling than, Mr. Tall Dark Handsome is going to come in, or you're going to win your lottery numbers, and tapping that. So it was always geared that way. If I'm honest, I spent a long time. That was my full-time profession. So I had clients every day, and I run workshops, retreats, and do talks and things. I got a little jaded. I think I was on, tell me if any of this, and I'm boring you, and I'll come back on track.
No, it's interesting.
But it led to, I think I've done so many workshops and private clients, and I was starting to see very deep patterns of people, and
yeah, there is a pattern, you're right.
all of us see, you know, clearing our core abandonment stories to get to our core self-worth stories, this life or past life. And I was like, this is good. I need, you know, like tea and books. I want to reach more people. And I was obviously right in the line then in that period of time of life. And I got invited on Psychic TV was just starting. So I was one of the founder psychics on there. And I did 6 years. But again, I set my intention with Upstairs very clearly. And each time I went on the show to bring in those that were interested in dealing with their emotional blocks or understanding themselves in the journey, and not necessarily the frippery, which has its place too. It wasn't entertainment. So, that was 6 years. And then I sort of hit a crossroads where I was going to, with my way forward, which was looking at the subconscious causes why people hold on to weight, go and have my own show that way. But also at that time then got in and had a production company and started making a TV show. And out of necessity, I'd actually, as a producer on that show, we got a director in. It was called Living a Life, where I brought 2 celebrities together.
I remember bits of that.
Nurtured, yeah, it was a good concept, and I sort of nurtured this.
Who were they?
The idea was to.
Who were those celebrities now? Who were they?
Who did we do? I did about 3 series, so like 70 people. I did Joanna Lumley, Elliot Gould.
That was it. Yeah, it was Joanna Lumley. I remember that. How was that? Was that easy to work with?
She was wonderful. Some were hard. I'm not a big, I think your stuff gets amplified when you're a well-known personality.
Yeah.
So some were difficult, and I just tried. Once I'd made that decision, I want to do this again, I would just link into Upstairs and listen acutely. And so like Joanna, I did with Melvin, Lord Melvin Bragg, and
yes.
I was nurturing out a time of their life in childhood of a transition, and he very generously shared about almost like what was a mental breakdown for him and described energetically what went on.
Yeah.
And then Joanna very generously shared when she was on stage in the West End, she had this, she thought someone was going to shoot her, and she had her breakdown. So it was very much geared towards, the camera guy might be looking at me as like, why are you letting that run? My Jules hat's going, why am I letting that run? And then whoosh, they would connect, and the marrow would come out of sharing, because, I really did try and put myself, stop projecting, let them feel safe and comfortable, but guide them in trigger points in our life where we get shaped by life and circumstance and emotional triggers discreetly. So it did well for that reason, I think. But to Buddy's question, I kept the odd retreats or workshops going there, the odd client, but that was my absolute focus, and other documentaries, and then moving here and made some short form, all about cat storytelling on characters, and trying to, exactly what you guys are doing, just trying to pull out what matters in the journey of each individual, really. But now, and again, I've rambled on that, but I think up to the last year or so, having been jaded at people when I was doing all my intuitive work, it sort of hit a point of how deep they wanted to go in the work on themselves.
Right.
Hence, I immersed myself and used all my intuition in my other creative venues. It was great in a way. I suppose there's always silver linings, but in COVID, there was a whole swathe of consciousness of people were reconnecting and back in. Look, I want to go deep now. I'm ready. What is it? Oh, this is not right. And suddenly it got reignited in terms of, okay, everyone's ready to roll up our sleeves and get to work on our healing. So, and it tied in then, obviously, because of circumstance and the way it all got set up, there was no filming, and it all became home based. So there's a lot of that at the moment, and seeing the shift in consciousness, which I think you guys have seen.
I think it's interesting because as humans, we sometimes want someone else to take the bag from us, but we have to do the work.
Yeah, correct.
And you have to go deep and do the work, because once you do that work, your life starts changing, your vibration starts changing, and all those miracles are coming in.
Yeah, but you have to do the work.
But
you have to
do
be
the work.
brave enough to go there. and look at your shit. You've got to look at you've got to look at the sides you don't like. And a lot of people do, we did similar work but different. Like you said, they did go, some didn't want to go that deep,
So picking up on there and what you're saying there, I think that's really astute, because we went through in 2018, obviously we went through the fires in Malibu, and it literally came to our door, and it was, again, asking upstairs and protecting energetically. It came right to our perimeter and burnt our perimeter and our garden furniture and stuff. And our house got saved by neighbours, neighbours helping neighbours.
So you didn't move out, you stayed in there?
Well, no, we were just by massive coincidence away in Boston at the airport, watching it on the news, saying,
so your neighbour was hosing away? Our
house is gone. We're like, gone. But 3 of our neighbours literally ran hoses for 3 days. We sneaked back in as soon as we landed and come back to help out, but they ran hoses for 3 days, putting all the spot fires out. And,
that's amazing, Joel.
What can you do there? You can't bake them a cake when they do that in there.
You can't take some bread around. It's like
forever in debt, gratitude. But it's amazing to go through that experience, but to see. I think my theme on there is, we've always said, there isn't dad's going to stop looking to dad to bail you out. Be dad, literal dad, be it the priest, be it your person, your state government, be it your national government, be it whoever. And I think this is why it's so sort of ramped up in society. I think at the moment, because we are being given that opportunity to learn ultimate self-love and responsibility. And even with, I'll attribute it to my wife, but she says, own the genocide in you. We're in genocidal times, if you want to be that dramatic about it. So just own your own genocide in you. If you believe in a soul and a past life, we've all been seen and done everything. But ultimate ownership and responsibility of the journey of the human soul puts us on a much, on surer footing out there than expecting dad to bail us out, when all dad's going to do is reduce our independence and our liberty and our intuition and our initiative and our discernment, and keep us more controlled.
Do you know, when you do your clients, do you, just for those that are listening in that probably have never experienced this, but do you, when you see your client, do you just drop in and go somewhere else to collect their information, or does it just come to you when they're talking, or how does that work? I know you did a session with Buddy a long time ago, but we didn't ask you at the time how you did it. Just seeing, what's different compared to everyone else's working.
I've got maybe a CEO corporate client here, and I'm just letting them talk, and then take them on a visualization and let them come to the understanding of the story of 7-year-old them and what set up the pattern and the habit, and just guide them through that. Whereas they don't know necessarily I'm seeing that. Upstairs is going to me, okay, we're going back to 6-year-old them.
Right.
A sibling was born, big age gap, huge abandonment story. But they don't know that. So I unfold in the visual.
So it's about doing the work, and it's about getting deep and to physically go there where those emotions are. I mean, I completely agree with you, Jules.
And some people aren't aware, or even ourselves, when we've been working on ourselves.
It's like the same storyline sometimes.
I mean, I know I catch that, when I'm on a storyline or something, I'm not that dense, but even when you think you've dealt with it and closed the door, and then it pops up again, or like you said, if people have a repeat constantly going on, what would you say for people that have something that's constantly going on, even though they've done quite a lot of work, and they think they've put it to bed, but they haven't? What would you say?
Yeah, again, that's spot on in terms of, it's so true, because I think there's 2 aspects to that. I think one of the aspects is, however much you might be dealing with self-worth issue or a poverty consciousness or relationship issue, until you actually maybe, for example, make £1 million, you're not going to be fully triggered on the strength of those emotions. Or if you actually get married, you're not going to be triggered on all of what you've healed with self-worth and abandonments and in relationships, because you've actually are married now. So the chips actually count and you are responsible, and there's no running, there's no hiding, there's no one foot out the door. And it's usually relationships or health or money in some aspects.
Yeah, you're right.
So, and I've had that many times in my own life where I thought, yeah, I've sussed this, I've cleared so much, and then you go into, like say, a marriage, or when people become pregnant, or even I've had clients that have had 2 girls, and then they're massive struggling when they're pregnant for the 3rd, and like I've gone through birth. I said, yeah, but this is a boy, and this is triggering hubby who grew up in foster homes, who feels a child's going to go through all of that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
You can't plan for that until you're right in the middle of it, I think. And also there is an LA side I've discovered to that too, which I'm sure you've seen, where, I've done all of that. I go, well, no, you haven't. You've nicely done it, and you've done it where it's.
When I arrived here,
and all that.
After being in Dubai, they really were good. I did the work, 15 years doing the spiritual work there, and they were good. Like, they really worked at it. Even the local people, different culture, different religion. I mean, we had Indians, we had every different culture.
They all went deep.
They all went, and it was quickening. And then God bless, I arrived here, and I was like, like they just, because I'm quite tough.
I'm the same.
Just
let them get away with it.
Yeah, I won't let them get away with it. And I was like losing clients. They just didn't want to go there. It was like, they didn't want to come back, or and I was like, what's going on here? And then I like you, it's like, and I don't mean this to everyone, but you can't just buy a crystal and that's fixing everything,
You can't omit out just distance and things. You can't, and it's such a big thing.
I was quite surprised by that, by the way, because there is such a massive spiritual community, especially in California, in the United States as a whole, but we're in the spiritual hub, but it can be just a bit surface. If you get going underneath, it's very few, and that
really,
did
I haven't
stop
sussed
me.
that yet.
That really surprised me.
And I haven't sussed that yet, how to open a door fully to. There are ones that are ready, but I think it's a really good correlation to, if we talk about miracles and connection to source. I think one of the biggest things in my life is doing so much with past lives and seeing things that would make absolutely no sense in this life until you've gone back as part of that soul journey. And if I relate it to past lives, people are quite comfortable in visualization, seeing their martyr story or their victim story, or where they suffered and poor me and hard done by me, etc. But they really don't want to go looking at the lives where they abused power, or they sacrificed other people, they killed people, or they were manipulative and nefarious, and their soul doesn't want to see that. And I think there's a little bit of that in the.
Why do you think that is here? Well, why do you think that is?
I think it's probably a perfect storm, I feel, where they're much more used to traditional psychotherapy counselling and wallowing in the story.
You're right.
So they'll sit down and give luxury to wallow in the story. So they know, I did that, Dad left at 5, I know that. Well, you understand it on an intellectual level, and you're physically, and a lot of people then go into the physical override of and it's a very beautiful place to go, to be all vegan and yogic up and spirit and meditated up and everything, but everything comes out of balance, and the emotional cellular block needs clearing. So you got to go back and roll your sleeves up and say, I know you understand Dad left, but 5-year-old you's still stuck. She's still there, 5-year-old stuck and running the program of that abandonment. So it needs some form of cellular healing to go back and reconcile and clear the story. So I think that's the perfect storm, where here where they've been, you know, wayfarers in a way, or looking to try everything, which has been beautiful on so many levels, it's also been a bit of a downfall for the digging deep, getting down and dirty with your cellular subconscious stuff. It's been harder.
I agree. And also, you know, what's interesting, because obviously I still do adults and parents, but obviously moved on to children. You know, people bringing me their children, and then I start, you know, the parent brings the child, and it goes back to
the parent,
and then they don't come back either, and they've paid for block sessions. They've paid for this 4 sessions, and they only come for 1, and then they clear off, and I'm like, and I reach out. It's like, no, I don't hear from them, because in the report back and in the intuition and what's being told and through whatever's gone on in that session, it's filtered back. And again, it's child's reflecting their child, or what's going on, whatever's going on with the parents, or you know, and that's really interesting. And I really loved that side of it. I love working with children, and they're very easy because they're more open. It's just then you've got the parents though. Again,
and then if you can get the parents to clear, they're gonna really benefit and move forward, aren't they? But if I don't know if you guys, it's by the sound of it, you agree on the same level. They're here. The children that are around right now are here to help amplify and reflect what the parents need to deal with.
They're very advanced.
So extremely advanced.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on community. You know, after 2018 or 19, you know, you had a community that was helping with the fires. But I felt after 2020, 21, I think we're trying to find each other in terms of different communities.
Correct.
Like who we are, same vibration, you know, making sure that we're there to help each other, to guide, but also making sure that we're there to grow with each other and lift each other up. Talk to me about community, how you feel about that, Jules?
Because it is birthing everywhere.
Yeah, I think absolutely, it's so important for actualized souls, or souls that are looking to really move through this shifting consciousness in this direction. If it's not controversial, I've said for years, we were approaching a crossroads of, there's this crossroads here where we're going to be hybrids, part human, part robot soul, however, and we're going to be actualized souls here, embracing the real shift in consciousness and almost becoming non-karmic by the time we go home.
Do you think there'll be a split? There'll be 2 sets of people?
I think that's how. I think we've just gone through that now. I think that's going to just amplify now. I do.
You mean that people have gone with all the IA and all that? Yeah, you're right.
I do. I feel that it'll be, you know, literally part man, part machine. I don't know whether
you're right.
Actually, be in that.
And when you go to certain cities, especially San Francisco, it was as if I'd gone to an AI city. I wasn't that comfortable as before, like before it was very different. And certain places we visited, haven't we? There's that human side had gone a bit, it had come AI, don't you think?
I think what's important is that as a community or as people, we need to realize that we are still have an emotion, and being a heart, there's an emotion, a feeling of emotion there. That is
emotion,
why,
a connection to Mother Earth,
connection with each other,
nature.
You know, because we are part of nature, we are one, we are part of each other. I mean, if something happens in one part of the world, we all feel it, you know. So, and having just looking at tech or whatever the case might be, yes, it can be great in terms of from one aspect, but I think we should have a good balance with regards to community, helping each other, you know.
And the children with the nature and understanding how to grow their own vegetables, their own food, to be self-sustainable. You know, that's really important for children to understand all those, you know, different modalities, not just sat in a classroom with a blackboard. And, you know, no disrespect to any teachers, because I really got a lot of respect for teachers, but, you know, more enrichment programs, enrichment schools opening up for community-based parents that we all help, like you said, and come together. I think that's like a new earth, really, don't you think?
Oh, I agree completely. And Buddy starting that off with community, and you bringing in nature and all that. I think they're the magic triangle at the moment. I think I've always talked nature. I come from the Welsh mountains, Welsh valleys, and I've always loved nature, but never in my life have I been so in tune to it as in this last couple of years.
Correct. We're the same.
We get our feet in the water every day. I'll have a cup of coffee for 5 minutes and chatting away to the shrub jay. I don't care what anyone thinks of that. We have really, a group of us have really amplified nature. We've always known is important, but has never been more so.
Yeah.
And then seeing your community reflect your inner heart is that too. And I think it's easier to do. My city living days are over. You know, they've served me at certain times in my life. But community, when you guys are saying community, we asked really specifically for us, you know, a like-minded soul community when we were going to move. We didn't know where we were going to move. We didn't ask that they'd actually save our houses and in the fires. But even with different opinions, I think I've been working internally here. I've got one of my neighbours who's a media guy and pretty much opposite end of the spectrum of opinion from me, but they like me. I like them. I help them out. I don't have to be, at each other's throats because someone's telling us to be politicized or different opinions. And so the community, nature, and keep working on our internal world to see it reflect back at us for those two stalwarts of community, nature, and light. Expansion of consciousness, which will be all embracing, like Buddy said earlier on, you know, when you talk about tech, absolutely, we're not meant to be living in an era of the only way through it is to live off grid or in a cave somewhere. We can be able to hold our light right now, but we are very conscious of where we put ourselves in a community and how we shine and how we connect with nature. And I think they're simple but very powerful tenets of human life at the moment.
Don't you also find that the universe, I mean, it's always mirrored back to us anyway, but obviously absolutely. I feel now more than ever, like, I don't know about yourself, you'll mention something, you'll say something will happen and it just comes up. It will just present itself when we're out, or I'll be saying something and the next minute it's on an English TV program, which is no way the phone's picked it up because it's not through the phone. Or we've mentioned somebody, then it's just a lot of that going on.
Synchronicity, there's tons of it.
Tons of it. But and also, like you touched on, I don't know about yourself, some magical moments with animals. Yeah, you know, absolutely. I remember being last year, we went to Monterey, Carmel and Monterey, and I was just sitting there and this squirrel pops up with its hands out, looking at me as if, you know, it was...
Can I have some food, please?
Something from Disney or something, you know. Yeah. I was like, oh. You know, and funny enough, I'd got some stuff from nuts in my bag and it was there and it took the thing and they took pictures, they kept the pictures, but it was like that moment of... Can't think of the film now, you know, as she's talking and singing to the, I don't think it's Snow White or what it was.
Dr. Doolittle or whatever. I'm unashamedly happy to go full Dr. Doolittle.
They're really communicating and there's a lot of magic going on. Have you had anything like that the last 2 years where it's like, I mean, I know you've been very intuitive and probably had lots of things, but is there anything the last 2 years when you've gone, whoa, oh.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you. I honestly, we're on the same page for sure. And I unashamedly say, you know, I'm talking to like when we first moved into the house we're in now a few years ago, the crows said to me, look, I'm going to feed us. We got a stone post box at the front of our house. And I don't think you're going to feed us. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And 2 days in, I'd forgotten. I was driving back. And I was like, oh God, and my wife called at the same time. And I'm like, I forgot. I got to pick up some peanuts for the crows. She goes, they're all stood on the post box right now. So I started feeding them. They're always chatting. They'd be coming tapping on our skylight in the morning. They knew our movements around the house. So if we hadn't got up early, they'd be, oi, come on. But we did that. And then we had a conversation we can share with you guys. We're considering adopting. literally the next day after they'd been fed, they drop off this little bracelet that had these little stone letters on that had been turned around to say baby.
Is that from the crow?
And apparently they drop off little gifts for you. I've had the regular ones.
They dropped off a bracelet with baby on
it. That said baby in these little
stone
letters on it. And obviously I've had the Coke can pull with some fir sticks through it, but that was just, yeah, and all of them. There's a shrub jay out here. I picked up a snake for the neighbours the other day. They called me and I'm just chatting to it. And it wasn't, and it's me. I'm like, are you calling the Welshman? We don't have anything, you know, snakes and spiders and all that. And they're Californian. But I said, well, it hasn't got a rattle on it. So I had a chat with it and it's like, just going to put you down the field. Just grabbed its tail. It went totally calm.
I don't know if I do that one. I'll do a rat and a mouse and he's screaming away, but snake, I'm not sure.
So long story short, in terms of I think we're all sentient beings, aren't we? And
the animals are really,
if you open up the communication to them, they'll meet you on that level too. And I'm more than happy to say that openly, and I have no qualms about that.
Yeah.
Well, Jules, thank you so much for chatting to us today. It was.
But before he goes, is there anything you'd like to share with people? Any tips or, you know, anything? Yeah, any tips that you'd like to share that they might, you know, grow from, or something new, or.
I think I wouldn't underestimate. I think consciousness keeps shifting. I think 25, 30 years ago, it might have taken me an hour and a half, 2 hours to guide someone through a visualization to access a past life.
Yeah.
You can probably do it in 2 minutes now, and they can get the story now, and they can move it on now. So I think, as what Buddy said earlier on too, about owning responsibility for our journey, I hugely believe that imagination is the veil to our reality.
I love that.
I
love that.
So where we pull down the veil of imagination, we're going to pull down the veil of our reality. So people are, you know, they become memes where they say, you're a lot brighter than you think. You're a lot, people are. So there's so much noise out there at the moment. I wouldn't underestimate any quiet time. Anyone on the planet wants to close their eyes or just sit quietly and ask a question of themselves and be led to move forward. They don't need, you know, decades of practice or anything. Everyone can access it like that if they are willing and want to take that direction. So I think that's the shifting consciousness has helped that at the moment in terms of, you know, there is no hierarchy of spiritual development in a way. If you're willing and open, it can go pretty quick in the way the vibration is at the moment.
Yeah, it's a good one to leave it on. I think if you're very direct in your question, you're very clear in what you want, it will be delivered to you that day, for sure, at this moment in time. No, it does.
No, I know.
You know, it does. And I think if that's what you know, the great gift that you just shared with people, if they're confused, there's a lot going on, cut yourself off, be quiet. Go for a walk, sit with your journal or whatever, ask the question, just wait. And it does come in. You have to forget about it. You have to leave it though. Otherwise, again, you know, it pushes it off if you just keep looking for it. But I agree with you. Ask and it's delivered.
Definitely. And you said earlier on about, you know, we both believe, we talked about that. The external world is living feedback of our internal reality.
Correct.
So you ask a question and now it's really quick. So we'll say, what should I be looking at there? And then comes the squirrel and goes like this. You know, it's like, it will be, in the old days, it might have been a bit sluggish or a bit murky, or it might have been dressed up.
Just walked off, you know.
Now it's like that.
Nice. Yeah, now it's like, oh, hold on, there's something bigger going on here. Yeah. I agree with you. But thank you so much. We're going to share all your information. So if anyone would like to get a session with Julian, we really recommend it because it really helped Buddy at the time. And yeah, you can check out. You have something else as well. What was it? Your other? You've got your website, and what was the other?
We're building our, I believe, along what you guys are talking about. Literally, is just giving people the time and a space to ask what it is they truly believe in. I think we're in a period of time where forced narratives are being spoon-fed to people, and it's a good time to take a breath back and say, what do I believe in? So we basically, obviously the kernel of this has started off with Malibu, so it's what do you believe, but really it's the be and believe in you. So we've done some short form documentaries, some podcasts, and now it's opening up to everyone else. What do you believe?
We'll share that in the description below with everybody, and so they can tune in and listen and contact you. But thanks so much, darling. It's so lovely to see you.
You guys are doing great job. You're shining lights in what you're doing. It's been lovely. Thanks for inviting me, and please make sure you surf camp, soccer camp, you pop around for a cup of tea.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jules. So please feel free to get in contact with us at info@themagicalmedicals podcast. That's info@themagicalmedicalspodcast.com. So thank you so much, and yeah.